I probably do like this. It's a move. It's a move for Utah to try to get better, to try to shake things up. Do I necessarily think? Obviously, it doesn't put them over the hump. I mean, they've been pretty hot as of late, so they will probably make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to drop out, especially with teams like Hornets and Minnesota looking a little worse by the day.
I think Utah's the shoe-in in the playoffs at this point.
Yeah. I mean, the Clippers are probably, unfortunately, the odd team out. The Lakers, unless LeBron James gets hurt long term, will probably still make the playoffs. But yes, I think this is a move that they could make. In terms of using up their cap space, yes, they will have so much of it next offseason, and it would be hard to use. You would probably, unfortunately, be forced to bring back a player like Derek Favors again. And I've always not liked the fit of Derek Favors there. I always thought that they should do something to shake that up. So here's what I'm going to propose to you, and it's out there, but I want to see how you feel about this. Okay, so I have Utah Jazz trading Favors, Rubio, Cephalosha, and one of either Exum or Crowder to Charlotte. Now, I have Charlotte trading back. Now, before you say anything, again, listen to the whole thing. Marvin Williams, Kid Gilchrist, and Batum, a first-round pick, and 2 second-rounders. And my rationale behind this, again, Marvin Williams is a very good, all three of them, Kid Gilchrist, Batum, and Williams are still decent defenders. Fit into the Jazz system with that. Batum is shooting pretty decent from the three-point line, actually about at just under a 400% clip. Same with Marvin Williams, hitting about 2 3-pointers a game at about a 40% clip. And Kid Gilchrist is still young and athletic and provides good defense. All three of them, I believe, fit the Utah Jazz system really well. This would take up all of their cap space for next year, but they get a first-round pick and 2 second-rounders. And the reason why Charlotte does it is because it gives them a ton of cap space, especially because, actually, I should say, Kemba Walker's cap hold will only be $18 million. So before re-signing him to that max contract, you use up about 40. And one more thing I can mention Charlotte could do is they could stretch Bismack Biyombo and open up a ton of cap space for themselves this summer to build around Kemba if he decides to re-sign. Go.
Does this even need a response? I don't know. What do you see in these Marvin Williams and Michael Kidd Gilchrist players? I mean, they have okay stats, but if you watch a Charlotte game, it's Kemba Walker versus and no one else versus the other team. I just none of these players to me have value. I would never put Jay Crowder in any type of trade.
Fine, Dante Exum.
You're trading 2 of your point guards. Who's going to be the point guard for Utah? Who's going to be the one who has the ball? Who's running the offense?
And that part I did think, and that's why I probably would have included Jay Crowder. And not to mention, I mean, this pick with Charlotte, I was considering like making it very only like top 5 protected. So it'll probably be a pretty high pick. I know you don't see the value of Marvin Williams, Batum, and Kid Gilchrist. All of them are above average defenders. 2 of them are very efficient and pretty high volume 3-point shooters.
I mean, yeah, if you look at their numbers, what you're saying isn't incorrect. But, you're getting a 30. So Marvin Williams 32, Batum's 30. You're giving up probably, in my opinion, the best player in the deal, which is Derek Favors. Now,
I hate that fit in Utah. I do.
I hate that fit in Utah too, but I feel like you can get something else for Derek Favors.
Like what, Jabari Parker? You're not going to get much for Derek Favors.
I mean, he's on an expiring contract pretty much.
Yeah, but what are you going to get? I mean, you'd have to probably pick up a Tim Hardaway Jr., who, I mean, don't get me wrong, he'd be something for Utah to do, but he's not a good player. I mean, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. He's not by any means a great player.
He's not, but I think he's more what they need.
Absolutely. Again, I'm not arguing. That's not what I'm arguing. But What I'm arguing is you're taking a huge risk by taking on Tim Hardaway Jr. and the 2 more years of his contract.
But you're taking Nicholas Batum and his contract.
Yes,
deal.
But you're getting a pretty high first-round pick.
Yeah, that's probably the only thing that you're really getting in this
And 2
deal.
second rounders. But 2 second rounders, when I say 2 second rounders, I mean 2 pretty high second rounders. And I mean,
Not if Charlotte...
Well, no, I'm not talking about Charlotte's second rounder. So I know for this year, they have Oklahoma City's second rounder, and then probably Denver second rounder, which is not high. By next year, they have Cleveland second rounder, and one of either Brooklyn or New York, the less favorable one, unfortunately. But what if you do a Cleveland second rounder in 2020 and their own second rounder in 2022?
Yeah, I mean, I like the picks. I don't think that the trade that you just discussed would put Utah to, be that solid number 3. It'd be adding a lot of players in the middle of the season. I think there'd be some issues with timing and seeing how all these players fit, building team chemistry. Again, I don't like the fact that Utah doesn't have a point guard in this case, because as we can see in like Orlando and Phoenix, that doesn't really help a team. So yeah, again, I know this is an area where I think we disagree on, no matter how much times we talk about it. So,
and I acknowledge the fact that it's, like I said, out there and it's a little crazy for Utah, but it's just something for me that they could, if they were willing to use their cap space in this type of way.
And the other thing is, and I'll just bring it up from Charlotte's perspective, yeah, cap space, nice, but do you think Charlotte is willing to sacrifice their pick this year just to get cap space, with probably not being able to entice anyone to come over and play in Charlotte?
To give up those 3, yes. I don't think, and to your point, I don't think they won't get top free agents, but for example, I think a good fit there would be a Marc Gasol, and you could get him, like I said, if he opts out, you could probably get him for about $18 million. That would still leave him with about another $24 million to sign a couple more players. And I think it's just a way for them to be like, all right, this will give us a much better opportunity to keep Kemba, plus put some new players around him, other players who may work better around him than the 3 aforementioned players.
All right, let's move on from that deal. Now, I have a deal here that if I'm looking at it right now, I'm like, what the hell was I thinking with this? Especially after yesterday's game. And so I'll put the deal. It's not a deal that I would think that the Houston Rockets would do right now. But I do think I know what I was doing here, and this was with the Houston Rockets. My original idea was to get them more depth. So I brought up a trade of Eric Gordon for Langston Galloway and Stanley Johnson. Now, the reason why I brought this up is because Eric Gordon's not having a very good year. He's been injured. He comes back. He came back. He hasn't been very efficient. His PR is at 10.1. He did have a really good game, obviously, yesterday, where he pretty much won the game for the Rockets. And, getting Stanley Johnson, who's going to be up on his rookie contract and who's really, really not played well, and Langston Galloway. I mean, Galloway is maybe a little bit of a decent player, but I guess the question I would pose is, how can we improve the depth of the Houston Rockets?
Okay. With this trade, yeah, I mean, you're right. Gordon has been struggling. I just think that there's still teams who would be willing to give up something for him, something better, I guess I should say. Then, like you said, Galloway's been actually pretty decent, but Stanley Johnson is who he is. I don't think he's going to get any better at this point. So here are a few ways I think you could improve their depth. I actually put up a handful actually of trade ideas up on our Instagram account of different ways that they could trade, different players that they could trade for. So, obviously you have the whole Brandon Knight for Kent Bazemore, which everyone still thinks that's going to happen, and for good reason. It probably will happen. Other ways you can improve them. Okay, so I'm looking at players I'm looking at teams, for example, of Minnesota. Yes, they have Robert Covington. They just got rid of Thibodeau. I think Robert Covington is a little more available for the right price. I think if you include an Eric Gordon and definitely at least 1 first-round pick, maybe 2 first-round picks, because these will be high first-round picks. Covington has been playing out of his mind in terms of in terms of his defense and has been shooting the 3-point shot at a high clip. His fit, I think, in Washington would be fantastic. Plus, if you're throwing in 2 second-round picks, I think easily you could either ask here to Minnesota to swap out Taj Gibson and Brandon Knight as well, or have them throw in an Anthony Tolliver, another highly efficient 3-point shooter. That is one option. And maybe a first rounder and 2 second rounders, but they'll probably have to be later second rounders. But I think 2 first rounders is a little more reasonable. You could look to Jeff Green, who's making the minimum in Washington. Try to pick him up for a couple of future second rounders. I think first rounder is a little bit of a stretch, but it depends on how desperate Houston is. You could look to Cleveland. You could look to try to either trade for a Kevin Love, or if you don't want to give up as much, you have Jordan Clarkson there, Rodney Hood, David Nwaba. These are all players who probably could be had for a reasonable price. I'm trying to think of other teams that might work. I mean, Marc Gasol might become available. I know, again, that's a stretch. Otto Porter is another player that you could look to. I mean, if you theoretically could package Otto Porter and Jeff Green for an Eric Gordon, Brandon Knight, and picks. So there's a few different options that they could take, which I'm sure they're looking into everyone. And really, they have to look into everyone because of how cheap they were over the summer, and how I don't know, I mindlessly dumb they were over the summer, in my opinion. Trevor Ariza, another option that they could theoretically trade for right before the deadline. I
mean, I think some of these options are okay. I mean, Robert Covington, I don't know if Minnesota is willing to make the deal that you brought up.
I don't either, yeah.
Especially because he's on a really good contract.
Yes.
He's on a team-friendly contract, and he fits the system well, and he's relatively young. It'd be interesting to see Kevin Love go to the Rockets. I don't know if the Rockets have enough assets to be able to, entice Cleveland for Kevin Love. I think the way Cleveland values Kevin Love, or what they want back from him, is a little bit higher than
2 first rounders.
You and I would think. Yeah, but it's 2 Houston first rounders, so they're closer to the second round than the first round.
Rumor has, from what's being speculated, there's not going to be more probably than a first rounder available. Now, I'll give you that Cleveland may be looking for a decent player or two, so Eric Gordon may have to be included in the deal for Kevin Love.
No, I'm just saying that. I agree. I'm not saying that he's not worth. That he's probably worth only about a first rounder, but I think Cleveland is overvaluing him a little.
And I think he won't be. He's a player that I don't think will be traded until at minimum the summer, just because I think Cleveland really would like for him to come back and rebuild his trade value.
Yeah, and I think that was the next point I was going to make, that we just don't know exactly who Kevin Love is. We do know that he does get hurt a decent amount in the past couple of years. I mean, he's only played 4 games this year, so that definitely devalues him, right? Even though, those 4 games were okay. I mean, his shooting was pretty darn bad. But, it'd be interesting to see a Kevin Love in the Rockets. The Otto Porter, again, I think there's just better deals that Washington can be made.
Of course.
I think, Houston at the end is in a pretty tough position, where the only thing that will make sense would be that Cam Bazemore trade that everyone's been talking about.
Yeah, and I think you could probably try to get a Ken Bazemore along with a Dwayne Dedman in that deal. Maybe if you have to give up a little more, if they want to trade, they're gonna have to trade picks. I mean, they have literally nothing of value. Maybe Eric Gordon, not maybe. Eric Gordon has some value. But literally, that's the only player they have that has any type of trade value that they will be willing to give up.
And from what we heard, Houston is willing to give up picks. And you know what? They should be, because their window is very, very small now. I mean, obviously, James Harden's having this great year, but as we watch Rockets game, there's really James Harden, not much else around him. Now they pretty much locked out with being able to pick up Austin Rivers. Because imagine, there's probably a win or 2 less if Austin Rivers hasn't been there for the past few games.
And then again, kind of Fareed soon too.
Yeah, we don't know we don't know what he's capable of doing. He hasn't done.
Yeah, I mean, of course, but
and I mean, obviously they're going to do it because now Clint Capella is injured, and that's something that's going to hurt the team a little bit.